Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The September 25th, 2019 meeting of the Anne Arundel County Board of Education will come to order. Please stand for tonight's invocation, followed by the pledge to the flag. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education. This meeting is being televised live on AACPTAS TV and live streamed on the internet. General information and protocols for the meeting are posted on the sign at the doorway as you enter the room, so please make sure you read those if you have not already. Before we begin tonight, the board would like to welcome Boy Scout Troop 1 from Severn, Maryland to tonight's board meeting. They are here tonight working toward their achievement of the Citizenship in the Community and Communications Merit Badges. So as an Eagle Scout, I just want to say welcome to all of you. Item 2.03 is approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Are there any changes or discussion with regard to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you. At this time, item 2.04 is establish agenda order. Ms. Alvey.
I move that the board consider item 7.02 immediately following public comment, and that is bias behavior and language policy code JO.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. At this time, would any board member like to make any other changes to the agenda? Any other changes? Seeing none, the agenda will stand as revised. Item 2.05 is recognitions, and there are no formal recognitions tonight. Item 2.06 is school and community highlights. Any board members wishing to share any school and community highlights? Seeing none. Item 2.07 is the policy committee update. Mrs. Corkadel.
Thank you, President Gilliland. The Board's Policy Committee met today, September 25th, 2019, at 4 p.m. in the boardroom. And I want to thank those who were in attendance, in addition to those who participated. And in summary, we have recommended that the review of policy GC and the policy of JP, which is employee leave, as well as student sexual harassment and misconduct, be forwarded for board consideration with minor edits. And in addition to that, we also reviewed policy GC-RAA, annual personal business leave, GC-RAB, sick leave, GC-RAQ, sick and safe leave for permanent and temporary employees, as well as KD-RA, visitors to the schools. We made minor recommendations, and that has been moving along. The board policy committee's schedule is been finalized and will be available on the website. And our next meeting is going to be, I believe, October the 23rd. Is it? our second meeting of Wednesday. Yes, okay, thank you. At 4 p.m. And once again, the public members are welcome to attend. This is an open meeting. However, we do not entertain public testimony during those meetings, but always appreciate extra eyes to that. And we will be continuing to move forward with the rest of our fall policy committee on schedule. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mrs. Corkadel. Any board questions or comments on the policy committee update? Seeing none, we'll now move to item 2.08, budget committee update, and we'll turn now to Mrs. Ellis.
Thank you. I have no update this evening. We did not meet this month, but we will be meeting for our October meeting, and that too is open to the public. Also, no public input, but welcome to attend and observe. So I'll update next month.
Awesome. Thank you, Mrs. Ellis. Item 2.09 is the CRASC report.
Good evening, President Gilliland, Vice President Corkadel, members of the board, and Dr. Arlotto. My name is Paridhi Cherry, and I'm the CRASC Secretary of Education. At last week's meeting, we discussed the addition of new executive positions to our board. Some of our ideas include a marketing director, an environmental liaison, regional representatives, and a secretary. Once the additional positions are created, we will amend the CRASC Constitution and ratify the changes at the General Assemblies in the fall. Regarding the article published in the Capital Gazette on September 5th about Meade High School, CRASC is saddened and appalled by the way Meade was portrayed, and we appreciate the efforts by members of the board and residents in the Meade community to attempt to repair the disparaging media coverage. As previously mentioned, we are scheduling meetings around the county to increase accessibility for students. I'm pleased to announce that we will be holding our first off-site meeting on October 2nd at Old Mill High School. A November meeting is scheduled at Severna Park High School, and the December meeting will be at Glen Burnie High School. On Friday, September 13th, middle school coordinator Brenton Meade represented the Middle School Voice and CRASC at the first meeting of the Mental Health Task Force. The task force is identifying contributing factors to the mental health crisis in our county, and Brenton established relationships with other members of the force. He is also restructuring the Middle School Council, a subcommittee in CRASC, so that all schools that serve middle school students, including charter and contract schools, are represented and have access to CRASC regardless of attendance at meetings. The Middle School Council has been busy communicating with students using Google Classroom and connecting with middle school advisors. On Saturday, September 14th, President Connor Curran, Educational Liaison Caroline Finn, and I had the opportunity to attend a MASC student workshop presenter certification training at Thomas Stone High School. During the training, we learned how to be an engaging presenter, organization and planning, and the importance of respecting diversity. After a full day of training, the three of us are now officially certified to lead MASC workshops at the Fall Conference, Legislative Session, and Spring Convention. For the 2019 through 2020 school year, CRASC is challenging students to increase attendance at our Wednesday night meetings by implementing the CRASC Cup. Schools with the highest representation each marking period will be awarded the CRASC Cup trophy to display for the upcoming quarter. We are excited at the many new students we have met and are hopeful that our off-site meetings and some friendly school competition will continue to increase participation. Thank you, and I appreciate the time to give you an update about what's happening in CRASC.
Thank you so much for that update. And I just also want to acknowledge Connor Curran, who's in the audience tonight, CRASC president. Thank you for being here. I love the wave. Item 2.10 is the PTA report. Ms. Rivera, welcome.
Good evening, board members. Good evening, Dr. Arlotto. Good evening, President Gillen. My name is Vanessa Rivera, and I am the Anne Arundel County Council PTA president. I just wanted to provide you all with an update since the last time I was here. We have been very busy during the summer conducting financial reviews for our local PTAs. In the early summer months, we partnered with Maryland PTA and conducted a summer leadership financial workshop for new PTA officers at the Carver Center. We currently have 92 active PTA units and are continuing to expand in our current schools. At the council level, we work with our local units on issues of compliance, financial reviews, and even conflict resolution. We are happy to announce that PTA has been very fortunate to partake in many task forces across AACPTAS schools, most recently participating in the mental health task force that came together for the first time a couple weeks ago. It was so exciting to see over 70 people from various backgrounds collaborating on working on ways to address mental illness in our county. With that, I'm excited to announce that Anne Arundel County Councils of PTA was the recipient of the portion of the $18.8 million in awards announced for fiscal 2020 as part of the state-mandated local program. This is an incredible collaboration between county school systems, Anne Arundel County Council of PTAs, and our local development council with LIVE. These funds will go to support the implementation of trauma-sensitive schools initiative in the Meade cluster schools. We will also be holding our general membership meeting on Monday, October 14th at 5:30 here at the board. Dr. McMahon will bring lots of information on the current happenings in our schools. In conjunction with this meeting, we will be hosting our reflections training for the schools. The theme for this year is Look Within. Reflection encourages students to explore talents and express themselves with the arts. The categories for reflections are dance choreography, film production, literature, musical composition, photography, and visual arts. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come up here and give you an update.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rivera, and as always, thank you for all that you do for the school system. Ms. Antwine.
Thank you, President Gillen. Ms. Rivera, thank you for the report. Could you please repeat the award that you all received, please?
Yes, we partnered with Dr. McMahon and with the county school systems, and that was the state-mandated funds with the casinos, and so it was awarded $300,000, but it's for the Meade cluster systems. So the schools in that area will receive funds for provide professional development, also for classroom furnishings, and the schools would be awarded that money that would be implemented to provide that.
Wonderful. So it would be split equally amongst each of the feeder schools within Meade?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Later this evening, the board will be voting on the superintendent's recommended fiscal year 2021 capital budget, 6-year plan, and state capital improvement plan, which I will abbreviate when we get to that point later. But before doing so, we're now going to turn to the public hearing on the superintendent's recommended 2021 CIP and capital budget. This is a public hearing on the superintendent's recommended FY21 capital budget. I have the sheet with names of those who have signed up to testify, and each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes. Speakers who require an interpreter will be allowed extra time. I would ask that groups appoint a spokesperson to deliver testimony with other members standing when that testimony is given. I know we only have one person on here, so I'm going to skip the rest of what they've asked me to read. But copies of comments are welcome. I was supposed to acknowledge the line of people. And certainly we have one person scheduled, but if there are other people after Ms. Brianza who would like to speak, they're welcome to come forward at this time. But you're up.
Good evening. Dr. Arlotto, President Gillen, members of the board. I have to say, I think this is a first for me to ever be speaking in a budget hearing of any kind and be the only person talking. My name is Jennifer Brianza, and I represent the Fundle Middle School Construction Group. I'm sure by now those of you that have been around for a while are probably real tired of hearing me speak. I apologize in advance if some of my comments are a bit redundant, but the Old Mill Complex Master Plan is a critical undertaking that's worth repeating more than once. I want to begin by thanking Dr. Arlotto for the Old Mill Middle School South feasibility funding included in his proposed fiscal year 21 budget. Last year, the board and the county council made great strides toward beginning the master plan with the design funding for Old Mill High School West and the feasibility studies for Quarterfield and Rippling Woods elementary schools. I can't emphasize enough how excited we are to finally see this project moving forward. And the continued funding for these schools, along with the funding for Old Mill Middle South, under the proposed budget is another great leap forward for the master plan. As you all have heard me say ad nauseum, the Old Mill area schools are the last remaining priority from the 2006 MGT study, and the funding included in this proposed budget brings us one step closer to the light at the end of this now 13-year journey. The schools in the Old Mill area showcase some of the best and brightest Anne Arundel County has to offer. We have 3 STEM programs in the complex, 3 magnet programs in the complex, STEM at Old Mill Middle South, and the IB programs at Middle North and the high school. Not to mention, we are the hub of career and technology education for North County. These schools deserve our continued focus and support, which is why the Fundle Middle School Construction Group is going to keep coming out here and keep emphasizing how critical it will be to keep this funding on track in future years. It's worth repeating, and I apologize if it gets old, but it needs to be said over and over until it's done. Again, we thank Dr. Arlotto for the funding in the budget, and we look forward to seeing the Old Mill Complex Master Plan continue to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brienza, and we are never tired of hearing from you. Thank you so much. Any other public testimony on the FY21 CIP and Capital Budget? Seeing none. We'll now move to a very special presentation. Item 4.01, Meade High School. We'll invite forward the 2 deputy superintendents. Welcome tonight.
Good evening, President Gilland, Vice President Corkadel, members of the Board of Education, and Dr. Arlotto. For the record, I am Monique Jackson, Deputy Superintendent for Student and School Support, and I'm joined this evening by Dr. Maureen McMahon, Deputy Superintendent for Academic and Strategic Initiatives. As requested by the Board at its last meeting, we are providing an update about the opportunities and supports that exist for students at Meade High School, as well as the challenges that need to be addressed. During the last board meeting, there was a request for the 2018-2019 arrest data. We have requested this information from Anne Arundel County Police and will make that information available to you once we receive it. The Meade discipline data for the same time period, 2018-2019 school year, indicates that over half of the 900, which is 432, office referrals at Meade High School were generated by 9th graders. We see the number of office referrals drop to 92, which is 9.6% for the senior class. As students become more acclimated to high school and build relationships among peers, they are less likely to receive an office referral. In fact, in each of the last 2 school years, more than 90% of the Meade High School students received 1 or less office referrals. And included in that number is the more than 80% of the total population that received 0 office referrals. Of the referrals last year, 37%, which is 337, were for insubordination or disrespect. 30% of the referrals, or 268, were for tardiness, truancy, or leaving class or school without permission. And 20%, or 177, were for physical or verbal altercations. And 5%, which equates to 44, were for either weapons, drugs, or theft. We use data points such as these to provide support to every school, but to Meade in particular. As Dr. Arlotto mentioned, the key to school success is relationship building. This is critical at Meade High School, where structures, culture, and leadership support building relationships. The Anne Arundel County Public Schools Executive Oversight Committee, or EOC, under the direction of the Office of Equity and Accelerated Student Achievement, has provided support to Meade through a very structured process where data is reviewed and strategies for success are embedded and monitored through their school improvement process. Over the past 3 years, Meade has been one of only a handful of schools that are part of this EOC process to assist with elevating all students, eliminating all gaps, and providing opportunities for all students. Some of these supports include restorative practices and a focus on 9th grade achievement through a special 9th grade academy. The United Way provides professional development for staff that includes therapeutic breaks, focusing on 9th grade students and their teachers. Staffing to support the behavioral and academic programs such as the counseling team, 2 SROs, multiple student advocates, a new community ambassador, and a partnership with Villa Maria have been added to the ongoing support for all of our students at Meade. The supports and successes of Meade High School also permeate into the academic program. Dr. McMahon will give an overview of the academic successes at Meade.
So as we know, we do our best learning when we're physically, cognitively, and emotionally engaged. All students need to find their learning niche, a place where they find their passion, a place where they find the place to feel at home, a place where they can fully engage. Meade High students are very fortunate in that they have many, many unique learning communities within their high school from which to choose a home. So first, it's important to remember that Meade High is an International Baccalaureate World School, part of the network of IB schools in AACPTAS that makes up the largest contingent of IB schools in all of the Americas. All students at Meade High are IB students through 10th grade. 100 slots per grade level are available for IB diploma students in the 11th and 12th grade. These students are open to Meade, North County, Arundel, and Glen Burnie cluster students because Meade's IB diploma program is a magnet program. This program offers students critical thinking, rigorous coursework, service learning, international travel, and opens doors to college credits and college programming worldwide. In 2019, 100% of our IB diploma students at Meade were accepted into 4-year universities, and all ended up studying at either 2-year or 4-year schools. These Meade IB graduates attend places such as the University of Maryland, Baylor, NYU, Drexel, Towson, Salisbury, WVU, and Georgia Tech, just to name a few. Now, Meade students interested in engineering, they can enroll in the nationally recognized Project Lead the Way pre-college engineering program. 191 Meade High School students are enrolled in this suite of engineering courses this year. The PLTW program engages students in planning and designing and prototyping, computer-based and full-scale authentic environments. The program opens doors to renowned engineering college programs nationwide. For those students who are drawn to military service, Meade offers Army JROTC. 160 students have made their home in Meade's JROTC community. That's a 31% increase over last year. Importantly, some Meade High graduates annually choose to enter one of the military service branches or the military service academies after graduating high school. Their interest and passion to serve our country translates into their career choice of military service. Now, Meade's Homeland Security Signature Program, a program open to all Meade students, provides events, clubs, high school and college courses, job shadows, mentorships, internships, all related to Homeland Security career fields, and it provides them to over 250 Meade students. Meade's Homeland Security Signature Program is led by a large community-based team of government and industry professionals from the greater Meade area across the Baltimore-Washington corridor. Regular visitors to Meade include those who come to serve on the integrated community stakeholder team that runs the signature program, or simply to join the school to speak with classes, host clubs, or host events. These visitors include professionals from the NSA, U.S. Cyber Command, DISA, DHS, CIA, FBI, AFCEA, the U.S. Army, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Booz Allen, Leidos, L3, LG Tech, and I could list many, many, many more. Most recently, one of our strongest partners, the Fort Meade Alliance, an organization with over 200 member organizations dedicated to serving the people and businesses on and surrounding Fort George Meade. They worked with us to submit a proposal to the local development council to build and implement a cyber center and virtual cyber range inside Meade High. The $381,000 grant was indeed funded, and the work has begun. It's beginning with a 5-fold expansion of computer science course sections at Meade High during this school year. Not only does Signature provide a learning community for hundreds of Meade students, many of these same students call Anne Arundel Community College home while they're still in high school. Tens of Meade students earned 15 to 40 college credits toward their Homeland Security college degree at AACC while studying at Meade High last year, and many more will do the same this year. And then we have our AVID program, Advancement via Individual Determination, one of the most successful student support programs across all of AACPS. AVID targets students in the academic middle, but the program strategies are offered school-wide to all Meade students, as well as a full AVID cohort immersion program serving 265 committed Meade High AVID students. AVID students learn how to study, how to communicate, how to plan for their future. They visit colleges and career fairs, seek guidance from tutors and career professionals, and learn how to advocate for themselves personally and professionally. In 2019, 63 AVID Meade seniors sought college admission and were offered over $6.5 million in college scholarships. AVID has truly provided thousands of Meade students a caring, yet very challenging and rewarding learning community for over a decade. Finally, we all know that students don't live and thrive on academics alone. It's important for us to nurture well-rounded students. At Meade, this translates into presenting students a diet rich with clubs and sports, organizations, competitions, and internships to complement the suite of strong academic offerings. Through our AACPS operating budget, in concert with over $1 million of Department of Defense competitive grant funds, we offer hundreds of Meade students opportunities to play 3 seasons of sports, participate in competitions such as History Day, Science Fair, Cyber Patriot, play and sing in our bands and our choruses, learn and engage in STEM and cyber clubs and events, travel to museums, attend professional conferences, and meet with hundreds of community professionals annually. It really is this intricate system of academic and co-curricular offerings and supports, and the amazing educators and community-based professionals who commit to offering these opportunities to our students that make Meade High an amazing place. Simply #AACPS awesome school to call home.
So Meade, just like our other high schools, is a thriving school with opportunities for all students. One of my favorite areas of Meade High School is the Media Center. In the Media Center, there are flags representing the national heritage of the students at Meade High School. This is a visual representation of what we all know to be true, that although there are challenges at Meade High School, a diverse student body, community support, focused leadership, and strong teaching and learning also thrive there. Thank you for the opportunity, and we are open to any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson and Dr. McMahon, for a very good presentation, and I know something that was just requested 2 weeks ago, and you've gathered a lot of data and I think told a great story about a great school. We've got a couple of board questions and comments. Ms. Antwine.
Thank you, President Gillen. I want to thank you, Dr. Arlotto. I want to thank you, Ms. Jackson and Dr. McMahon, for this presentation. The request a couple of weeks ago was to address the September 5th article that talked to arrests and citation of our students across the county, and specifically at Meade High School. I appreciate that you all brought up the security concerns there. You brought up the curriculum there. You brought up our commitment to the students and to the community at Meade High School. This was very comprehensive and very appreciated. My question then would be about what you shared earlier, Ms. Jackson, about reaching out to the police for the records. Did they share a time frame when they'll get that back to us, please?
No, ma'am, they did not.
Okay. So I guess my next question would be then, if when do those stats normally come back to us? When are those types of stats shared with us?
I couldn't answer that because this was the first time, the article was the first time that I became aware of those particular stats.
Okay. I guess my disconnect is that there are records at the there are arrests and citations that are occurring at the school, and we have the dependency of the police to give it to us, but no means in sight to receive. So if we could, at our next departmental reports, if you don't have it, could you let us know? And if you do, if you could share that with the board, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you
so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Antoine. Mrs. Ellis.
Thank you, and thank you for a wonderful story, because I've been to Meade several times now, and it is a beautiful story there. My question, the thing that struck me very early on was you talked about over half of office referrals are for freshmen.
Yes, ma'am.
Of course, we know the challenges with that age and that time in life, and I'm sure we're doing all kinds of wonderful things. You're already aware of that, but can you share for us what we're doing to reach our middle school students to help them into that transition? And then secondly, I've been reading a lot. I learned at the conference for the National Boards of Education, I sat in on a wonderful session of a pretty challenged community that has home visits for their students in the summer and helps them transition into the school year. So that's two questions. If you could speak to the home visits idea or what might be happening, but also what are we doing to reach our middle school students to help them?
So let me start with your second question first. We absolutely implement home visits. If there's a school who does it on a regular basis, it would be Meade High School and several of our high schools, our middle schools. I cannot speak to the number of homes. I know that sometimes it's targeted. I can't speak to the number or their process, but I do know that we're well aware of that research that's been out for a while, and I can even speak to when I was a principal at Annapolis Middle School about 9 years ago, that was something that we were even doing in the community based upon some of our high school partners. To speak to your first question, which was, I forgot already.
I'm sorry. Reaching those middle school students, and helping them during those really difficult.
Absolutely, that's a really great question. We know that transition years 5th to 6th, as well as 8th to 9th, are very difficult, especially when you are essentially taking two schools and bringing them together into one. You know, what we call high school principals are essentially mayors of small cities. And so what we implemented several years ago, even before my time as deputy superintendent, we implemented a tracking system in which we don't have a name other than our early warning systems, in which we triangulate data for attendance, referrals, and we try to create a list of students who may need extra attention. We provide mentor support for them. We make sure that sometimes when we can, we do some compassionate scheduling for them as well. And then we make sure that we do, if there are, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, some homeschool connections that we can make early on, we absolutely do so. It's amazing to see principals. I've been to every high school, and I've seen principals with their little clipboard walking around, and when they do their walkthroughs, they are checking on those students as far up as the principal. Our professional school counselors as well, they're checking on them to make sure that they have what they need. Sometimes it's school readiness. Sometimes it's something that has occurred that got them off track in 8th grade, but amazingly they turn around in 9th grade. So I absolutely appreciate those questions, and we absolutely do those things to assist both our transitioning 8th graders as well as our transitioning fifth graders into sixth grade. Because as a middle school principal, I can tell you, again, when you bring two or more schools together, they are eager to get to know each other. And sometimes it's not in a positive way.
Right. Just real quick, back to the home visits.
Yes, ma'am.
This one particular district that I was really impressed by, they have it's a day in the summer that's a community day, and
Yes.
those teachers are in throughout the community, and it's a big celebration. They have like lemonade stands and stuff like that, but they're making those connections. In other words, they're not singling out students who are necessarily identified as needing more support, but they're just reaching all those students and making those personal connections before they come to the classroom.
Absolutely.
I thought it
I'm
was
sure
very
that
cool.
you've seen in the paper, for example, I remember the front page of the Capitol, I guess several months ago, they focused on Mills Parole Elementary School and their community event where the teachers went there. I know that, again, it's very easy to go places where there are community centers, and so many of our schools work with community centers, apartment buildings, things of that nature to do that. But I think you're absolutely right. Going in the community and for all of the students to see, they pass out popsicles. We have principals that go into the community. They pass out popsicles at the local pools, and they talk with students. It's especially important if there's a new administration, so that they can get to know the administrator before the first day of school. So absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
If I could jump in, would you do me a favor, because I think Mrs. Ellis really was hitting on something important there regarding the preparation through middle school to get ready for high school. Yes. Would you talk a little bit, Ms. Jackson, about the middle school advisory program and that how we're using that to launch students into high school?
Absolutely.
Thank
so middle school advisory is essentially a small group of students that meet with a caring teacher once to twice a week to prepare for whatever. So sometimes it's preparing for test taking skills. Sometimes it's, how to reduce anxiety. During advisory, sometimes we talk about how to get along with others. Sometimes a personality inventory is taken. But right before high school, we do try to focus on those skills that we need for high school. For example, the balancing of the A-day or B-day schedule. How to, for sometimes our students for the first time, they're introduced to the world of sports. And so extracurricular activities. Sometimes the counselors from the high school also come down and chat with the students as well to talk to them about what's needed. One of the things where possible is on the first day of school to help that transition. I know we did this at Annapolis Middle School. You'll see, and I'll use Annapolis High School, for example, the 8th grade teachers from Annapolis, and I'm not for sure about Bates, but I know Annapolis Middle School, greet the students on the first day to reduce anxiety, and they're frequently there for them throughout. So we really do try to focus on that transition from the transitions, because we know. And we also know a lot about the adolescent brain. And we know that during that time, our students are making impulsive decisions, as you can see with that. But as they grow and mature and they become part of their community, they're very proud of their communities. No matter what high school our students attend, they're very proud. And so they become part of that community, and it becomes their family. They found their, we like to say they find their people. So whether it's the theater people or it's band or it's sports, by the time that they're really sophomores to juniors, they have found that group that they associate with and can grow and learn with.
And we do take advantage of that time between, as they're a rising ninth grader, between 8th and 9th grade, for camps. We call them camps. Some are more academic, some are more co-curricular, but the idea is they come from MacArthur and they come from Meade, and that is the first mixing that they do. And whether it's they're studying a language like Arabic, or they're in a Cyber Patriot Junior Club, whatever it is, they learn, they have icebreakers, and they learn to get along and work in teams during those summer activities.
And thank you, Dr. McMahon. That brings up another good part about we also have ambassadors. And so typically they're upperclassmen that reflect the community of the 8th graders. So sometimes they're the athletes. Sometimes, again, they belong to different clubs and organizations. Sometimes there are students that are aligned with a particular program of study. You know, maybe they're their signature students or what have you, but so that they can ask questions, because they don't want to ask adults questions. They would rather ask their peers questions. And so, but as I say frequently, is it perfect? Do we continue to research and find best practices across the nation? Absolutely. And at the same time, because something works in another part of the nation doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work here in Anne Arundel County, or, bless you, or because it works here in Anne Arundel County doesn't necessarily, for one school, doesn't necessarily mean it's a secure fit for every other school. So we do a really good job, in my opinion, of trying to meet the individual needs and interests of our students, especially in those transition years. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more board question or comment, and that's from Mr. Grannon.
Yeah, this is just going to be a quick two-part question. Thank you very much for that presentation. Very, very informative. Ms. Jackson, are you available if asked by anybody from the Capitol to sit down and be interviewed and provide details and further meat on the bones to everything that you were addressing tonight?
Sure, I would absolutely work with our team to provide as many details as I possibly could.
Okay, Dr. McMahon, are you available for the same type of interview by the Capitol? Can we make sure both of those answers are reflected in tonight's minutes? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Grannon. Any further board questions or comments at this point from the board? Seeing none, there may be some summary comments as we move to public testimony. Before we do that, I want to first acknowledge Fort Meade Installation Commander is here tonight, Colonel Eric Sprague. You're here with your wife. I just want to say thank you for your service to the country. At this point, we'll move forward with public comment. We've got 5 cards for people who've signed up in advance, and certainly we've got 6 seats here, so if there's someone else that wants to join, they certainly can as well. And then we'll have an open call for others that may wish to speak. We'll start with Colonel Sprague, Sarah Bonice, Marla Lovell, Reverend Samuel Williams, and Claudia Barber.
Good evening.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'll be speaking, Meade. Good evening, President Gilliland, Vice President Corkadel, Superintendent Dr. Alado, and board members. I'm Sarah Bonice, and I am the school liaison for Fort Meade. Basically, I support military families and schools here in Maryland, especially in Anne Arundel County. I come to every board meeting, just about. Recent press about Meade High has hurt our hearts and communities. Recently, as we have all noticed, the youth of the world are leading the way, speaking their minds and asking questions. So I'm able to share with you parts of letters written by young Meade High alumni. I think you have copies? Copies of the letters? Yes. Okay. Okay. And I'm pleased to present this. So, the first letter, Dear Anne Arundel County Board members, my name is Cameron Foreman. I'm an alumni of Meade Senior High. I work in the Department of Pharmaceuticals in Columbia, Maryland, and would like to speak on a positive light on behalf of my alma mater. There has always been a negative limelight with the standing of Meade High School. Meade High has provided a setting to prepare young teenagers for their future endeavors. Meade High also offered a variety of different role models that helped shape me into the person I am today. Throughout my 4 years at Meade High, administrators were very adamant about strengthening not only my wisdom and life skills for life after school, but for all the students, informing us about knowledge and how to avoid the wrongdoings that we may have done to minimize our mistakes for the next situation. Coming into Meade, I could have been identified as a troubled child, insubordinate child, doomed for failure, the very type of student named in this article. But with the constant persistence of teachers, administrators, and coaches, I graduated on time in 2014. The first letter is from Cameron. I would not change anything from my journey at Meade High School, the struggles, my naive actions, even my disciplinary consequences all led me to meet positive, powerful people that I would not expect to still have an impact on my life today. To conclude, Meade High is not a negative school. There is nothing that occurs at Meade High that does not occur at any other Anne Arundel County school, but the limelight has not shined upon those specific schools, just Meade. Let's unify and direct the energy to strengthen the already strong Anne Arundel County Public Schools. And you have the other two letters. I ran out of time.
We do have all three letters that were just given to us.
Okay.
So thank you for sharing those copies. And thank you for your testimony tonight. Please. Sure. Whoever wants to go.
I'm Marla Lovell. Nice to meet or re-meet some of you as I've been at all the science fairs, PTA events, asking for a new school for Jessup. Thank you very much. I actually had this beautiful, or what I thought was beautiful, thing written in my car on the way in here. But I believe, is it Dr. McMahon? She covered almost everything, so I'm just going to read through it and hope I get an echo of sentiments. Good evening, members of the board, with a special nod, of course, to Miss Elvie for joining as a student representative and fellow Mustang mom, Miss Candace Antwine. Thank you so much for echoing and teaching us a lot about your son. He is quite a gentleman. Had the luxury of meeting him. I'm joining here this evening along with other members of the Meade cluster community to reflect on experiences, opportunities, and areas that benefit the Focus Meade Senior High School, or benefit from Focus. I would like to begin with the fact that my son Danny chose to attend Meade, and he has been in private, public, and magnet schools, specialized university camps, and other courses in his 15 years of academia. He had so much support from staff that worked at both MacArthur Middle School and the high school that he was certain this was the best choice. He surprised me in his freshman year last year by making a very mature choice to opt out of the North County STEM lottery because he saw a huge opportunity at Meade. He met teachers he liked, programs he loved, including Chinese, Homeland Security, Project Lead the Way, and the theater arts. It's something that was close to his heart, because his father had done very similar programs. In fact, he worked on the lighting board in the Meade High School Theater 25 years prior. I believe that is still there. It might be the one that actually worked for their last theater production. I should mention, that he was not great on paper, but had a wonderful academic history, and I believe he was even accepted into MIT after years of being rowdy and having issues. I came from Howard County, but I moved to Anne Arundel and dug into volunteering with gusto, advocating for programs that teach kids to be self-reliant, solve their own challenges, and know how to critically think through roadblocks and peer conflicts. Excuse me, I just got a little nervous there. As a bonus, it would also be great if they had a really fun time doing it and got to know each other. These were skills we realized that even large numbers of adults haven't quite mastered. It's a great hope that if we teach them common sense early, maybe they could teach us later. I'm sure we've all had coworkers that could benefit from that. Danny now has really cool, highly experienced mentors from the engineering department, the Homeland Security Signature Program, the Chinese language instructors, community partners, the chair of the English department, and some really fantastic gentlemen who teach history. They have passion and interest in current versus historical events, and definitely work with the tenet of teaching history so we don't repeat history. Meade is definitely...
If I please summarize.
Oh, thank you. I had a couple of suggestions for the fact that we have programs that maybe the community at large isn't familiar with, and I could summarize with Homeland, engineering, theater, et cetera, is that these programs are there, they have budgets, they've been given fairly large grants, as the doctor had mentioned, but what we're finding is that they're kind of going by the quiet side. They're not being enforced. They're not, for instance, my son, when he went to schedule his classes this semester, he wanted Chinese and engineering and a number of other honors courses, but he was told that it would conflict with his IB cohort classes. So there are other programs of study there that are gaining a lot of grants and a lot of work opportunities, but they need more focus. And also with our theater department, we lost Mr. Kapersky and Mr. I just got a little nervous and forgot his name, but the music director that left. They were so instrumental in just focusing kids on all these great things. And I guess what I'd like to say is there's a lot more there than people even really know about. And I'm kind of surprised myself at how much I've really grown to love it. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am the second vice president of the Anne Arundel County chapter of the NAACP, testifying on behalf of Jackie Alsop and its membership. I come before the school board tonight to address implementing a zero tolerance policy for students engaging in biased behavior against other students. In the wake of a September 13, 2019 incident involving football players at Arundel High and Severna Park High schools, it is time for the school board to re-examine effective consequences for students engaging in biased behavior which incites school disturbances and amounts to harassment in a racially hostile school environment. During the September 13, 2019 incident, a player reported that he was called a racial slur by a Severna Park High School football player. It is insufficient to send a letter home to parents. Why wasn't the victim believed? Where is the effort to implement consequences such as removing such players from the football team for 2 or more games and suspending players for the entire season? Where are the consequences such as suspension from certain school activities or expulsion from school? These actions could well fall with the consequences of a timeout and temporary removal from class as a first offense. But during the course of a year, the Anne Arundel NAACP receives many complaints of similar allegations of racial slurs being made against students of color or nooses found on school property. What we don't see are concrete consequences for this behavior. The time is now to implement a zero tolerance policy with more concrete discipline as a deterrent to this behavior. The NAACP condemns this behavior and refuses to accept the letter home to parents as the sole remedy without further action. It could be coaches, it could be referees. They should be given the authority to implement game suspensions to students engaging in biased behavior because it ultimately leads to school disturbances and other harassing misconduct you read about in the newspaper. When it happens, no consequences that we can see. Parents witnessing such behavior should remain diligent about reporting these incidents. Under your existing and draft student code of conduct, a biased behavioral offense may result in a referral to the CL program or some interventions. That is not enough because most biased behavior incidents incite a school disturbance and amount to a racially hostile school environment. The numerous complaints the Anne Arundel NAACP receives are evidence. This problem is not being deterred. We want to see statistics, but most importantly, we want to see concrete discipline implemented against offenders. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that. And just for clarity, we are going to have a general public comment session momentarily. This is specific to the Meade High School presentation at this point. So Dr. Didoni.
I'm just a companion right now. I'll be back.
Excellent. Any other public testimony at this point on the Meade High School presentation? Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Reverend Samuel Williams Jr., and I'm the Program Development Director at Mount Olive Community Development Corporation, and that is our nonprofit arm of Mount Olive African Methodist Episcopal Church. Now, we all know that the African Methodist Episcopal Church has a long history of social justice battles. And when I read the article in the Capital Gazette, and I gave Mrs. Antoine a call. Now, what I told her is what I'll tell you. 3 months ago, we saw these same statistics. Now, I feel for you because the stats don't exist. I looked, and I'm a pretty good researcher. It's really hard to find anything. But what I did find is that across the board, at other high schools, maybe even middle schools, it's the African American or the Hispanic kids that are at the top of that chart. Now, what we wanted to do, once we saw that, was to do a pre-diversion program. And when we say pre-diversion program, we don't want the kid that you already have diversion programs. And that's for kids who may be going to court. We want to do a pre-diversion for the kid that's getting suspended for truancy or whatever. We want that kid, because where there's smoke, there's fire. If they're going to do that, I can guarantee you'll see them soon enough in another area. And so that's what we're kind of looking at. Now, I spoke to two pre-diversion program people, one in New York, one in Chicago. They said a lot of times community-based diversion programs work simply because it's not institutionalized. It's a little bit more comfortable, and they will listen. So what our Mount Olive CDC is looking at, maybe possibly a referral partnership. I'll go get the money. But if we have a referral partnership and we can show you what we're trying to do and maybe even tailor it to work a little better for the school district, that's what we want, because those statistics really, really bother us. Our minority students, as I said, top that chart. And we want to try to arrest that, but we don't want them. We want to do it before they get to your diversion program stage. Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you,
Questions?
Pastor. Thank you.
Pastor, before you leave for the evening, would you just chat briefly with Ms. Pelham, who is our Associate Superintendent, Assistant Superintendent for Student Support Services?
Okay.
I'd like to get your contact information, because if we can develop a partnership and you've got some folks that are ready to work with kids,
yes,
we can help identify students, get their parents involved, and get you involved. That'd be great.
Okay, sounds good. Blessings.
We're going to have some summary comments from board members momentarily, but is there any further public comment on the Meade High School presentation? Any further public comment? Seeing none. Okay, we'll turn to board members. Mrs. Hummer.
Yes, I just want to thank the staff and Ms. Monique and the others who spoke and talked about all the great things that are happening at Meade. We definitely have concerns and things that we want to address, but I don't ever want those challenges to overshadow the great opportunities and great students and the lives that are being changed at Meade High School every day. So I appreciate all that coming out, and as a proud mother of a Mustang, I look forward to my next 4 years working closely with the school to celebrate their successes and help overcome their challenges.
Thank you, Mrs. Hummer. Mrs. Schalheim.
I first wanted to thank Ms. Jackson and Dr. McMahon for the presentation. I thought it was fabulous. I also loved hearing from the public testimony about all the wonderful things that Meade does. I've only been to the campus a few times, and I love the steel drum concert every spring. I love hearing about the cybersecurity programs. I think it's all very fabulous, and those are the things that need to be in the paper. But if there is data out there somewhere, or evidence to support an uptick in referrals, especially for our students of color versus other schools or other situations, then I'm hopeful that those sorts of things will be addressed as part of the fabulous initiative that was just announced between our county government and our school system to help close the achievement gap and to help rein in some of those numbers so that some are not disproportionate to, say, the Caucasian community. So, yeah, and I also wanted to applaud that effort. I was at the announcement the other day, and I think that's going to be fabulous. And I really applaud Dr. Lotto and all the staff for recognizing the problem and for working towards a solution. And some of the things that come out of that could definitely benefit Meade and other high school communities. And yeah, I just look forward to their work. And I'm grateful for the presentation tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Schallheim. Ms. Antoine.
Ms. Lavelle and Pastor Williams, just sincerely want to thank both of you for your community efforts. I know how hard both of you work in our community, especially at Meade High School. And I thank you also for the information that you brought up for our consideration. These are programs that are readily available to our students, but there may be opportunities that are not so available to them or even discourage them when they don't know about them. So that in itself is something that we can utilize, promulgating this information as you did tonight. Thank you all for that. And also ensuring that whatever may be interfering with them taking advantage of those opportunities is eliminated. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Antoine. Any further board questions or comments on the Meade High School presentation? Seeing none. Again, thank you, Dr. Arlotto, Dr. McMahon, Ms. Jackson. We'll now move to public comment. Again, general public comment at this point. Anyone wishing to speak on an item not on today's agenda may offer testimony during this public comment portion of the meeting. Speakers are allotted 3 minutes each and may not allocate their time to others. A tone will sound when time has expired. The board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing this meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. It is not the board's general practice to engage in a question and answer session with speakers. For the record, please give your name before speaking, and handouts should be given to the board assistant. We've got a number of cards, and I'll just do the first group of 5, if that's okay. Holly Kleiderline, Kenneth Starks, Jennifer Masters, Tracy Brennan, and Eliza Bird.
Good evening, President Gilliland, Dr. Arlotto, and board members. My name is Holly Kleiderline, and I am the school counselor for 717 students at Oak Hill Elementary. I'm here tonight to help you and the Mental Health Task Force move forward to the action stage, because we already have a lot of information about what the problem is and what the needs are. The AACPTAS Division of Alternative Education Strategic Plan from August of 2017 identified 2 issues for elementary schools. 1, there are limited elementary supports or interventions to support the behavioral health of our earliest learners. 2, an increase in concerning behavioral health challenges impact a significant number of those learners' ability to experience academic success. The AACPS Pre-K to 2 Social Emotional Learning Work Group identified 8 outcomes to address the increased social emotional needs of our youngest learners. The first outcome is to establish universal, targeted, and intensive supports, and the second is to establish school-based behavior support teams to effectively prevent, intervene, and support students. The Community Health Needs Assessment of Anne Arundel County from 2019 revealed the number of newborns found positive for substances, including methadone and opioids, has risen 144% since 2014. Think about how old those newborns are today, and think about who is helping to take care of them. There has been a 70% increase in residents seeking mental health services since 2012. The two highest increases are the early childhood population and those over 65. The first 6 months of 2018 had as many reported incidents of domestic violence as all of 2017. There's a comparative lack of private mental health providers in our county. The number of crisis interventions in the public school system for social and emotional issues has doubled since 2013. One of the identified needs was an increase in mental health and behavioral services for all childhood populations, but especially the 0 to 5 age group. Given this information, which the school system and the board already had, I am bewildered by the fact that Oak Hill, with 717 students, including 7 kindergarten classes, still has 1 school counselor, a 0.4 school psychologist, no learning lab or behavioral support. It's rather terrifying to think Oak Hill was 20th on the list of schools needing additional mental health personnel. A lot of progress was made in this budget area last year, but clearly it's not time yet to celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on, Mrs. Schallheim.
I thank you for your testimony, and I truly hope that one day you won't have to come and beg for another counselor. I have asked about this a few times, and it was my hope that with the additional counselors that were budgeted for in place, that Oak Hill would be the beneficiary of one of those. They were placed in other places that according to staff were higher on the list. This is on my radar. I desperately want to see some relief given to you and your caseload, and I'm going to keep fighting for you. And
I understand that. I would be here if I had a second counselor too. I would still be testifying for all the other counselors.
No, I don't blame you for that either, because even if you had to, you still wouldn't be near to the recommended ratio of 250 to 1. And
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Eliza Burkes, and I'm a senior at Annapolis High School. During my freshman year of high school, I was at Glen Burnie, and during that time, I was in a program called CAT North, where I got to do, as we all know, CAT North is a program where you can do different things like hands-on work for stuff like baking and pastry or Cisco, or one of my favorites, such as voting. But unfortunately, I couldn't finish CAT North because I had transitioned to Annapolis High School. I wasn't able to join CAT South at all, but during my time there for the last year, actually, just nervous. I think that we should encourage more students to join these type of programs such as CAT North, or have more programs at the school, because a lot of students aren't really fit for a classroom environment. Some students don't really like sitting in a classroom for 86 minutes, to be honest. Some would prefer hands-on work morally. And there are a lot of students that are deciding, such as myself, to join trade school because they have more interest in that. A lot of kids don't go on to college because they prefer that. I think that we should have more programs that encourage students to, join these programs in order to have a head start in life, rather than the select few that get to go to CAT North or CAT South. And I also believe that we should have more programs such as FBLA, where they can learn more things to do in the future, like being a business leader or having a lot of other things. Just being able to do more physical activity and have fun and find something that they love doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Antoine.
What an incredible testimony. Thank you for that. I had a question for you. I want you to know that you are speaking on behalf of thousands of students, and your boldness is commendable. I also want to understand from you, you shared that you were removed from CAT North because you transitioned to another high school. Can you help us understand that, please?
Well, I was living with my aunt in Glen Burnie, but I had moved to Annapolis with my grandfather. And I really don't have any information on why I couldn't join CAT South. But I was at Cat North, and they at Cat South over at Annapolis, but nobody ever talked to me about being able to join the welding program again. So
Understood.
I didn't really have much of a chance to finish it. But I do plan on staying. I do plan on still doing welding in my future, so.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. And so, Dr. Arlotto, life happens for our students, as she has testified. But when they're accepted to our magnet programs like Cat North, could they be considered for the other CAT programs when they transfer to another school, or do they have to start the process over?
They absolutely can. So I can't speak to this young woman's specific circumstance, which I'd like to learn more about. But the way it works in Anne Arundel County is we've got Cat North and we've got Cat South. So 7 schools and 5 schools go respectively to Cat North or Cat South in terms of high schools and transportation. So the fact that she went from one school that was served by Cat North, transferred to another school that's served by Cat South, she then automatically becomes eligible to go to Cat South. Now, was it the same program? I don't know. I want to talk more with you and find out more about it. But she certainly should have that opportunity. Why she was not afforded that opportunity, I can't address that now. But she certainly has that option to go, anybody that transfers. But we wouldn't be able to transport a student from Annapolis High School up to Cat North. We wouldn't be able to do that. That's the reason we have the transportation schedule set to serve 7 schools to one and 5 schools to another.
I just think we should have more encouragement towards students to do, because some students may have a lot of talent at a certain job at one of these programs that they don't even know about. There are a lot of students that walk the hallways because they feel, some students don't like having to sit down for a long period of time and just, they prefer to have hands-on work and to do more, rather than, because for me personally, it doesn't really fit my interest. I need something that consumes my time and keeps me busy, but it's also good to do. And I think welding is one of that. I just think we should have more programs for students like that so that they can go on and do stuff like that and find a liking in it. Or maybe stuff like FBLA at the school so that they can be more connected to the schools, meet more people and be able to do something like that they love, or find, just something. Sorry,
you are 100% correct, and I'm just letting you roll. You do it because you're saying much better than I certainly could. There's no question about it, right? Speaking from experience, getting your hands on it and doing it is so much better than sitting and listening about it.
Because
right?
Cat North really did change my
involve
life.
me and I'll learn, right? You can teach me. Benjamin Franklin had the saying where he said, "You can teach me and I may learn, but if you involve me, I absolutely will learn." Yeah. That's not the quote, but you get the idea, right? Don't really crush that quote, but you get the idea. I do want to share with you, and you may not be aware of this, right? So certainly the CAT centers are limited, right? They are only so many classrooms and so many programs in each, and so we do have to limit the number in their wait list in almost every program at CAT North and CAT South. And much of that limit is because of safety, right? You can only have so many students in welding. You can have so many students in small boat repair because the teacher's got to be responsible for the safety of the students because they're handling tools and chemicals and those kinds of things. But you won't know this, but I'll look around the audience at folks that are more my age will remember when tech programs were in the schools, and that's what you're talking about, right? You used to go down the hallway, yes sir? You used to go down the hallway to your CTE program. We didn't call them CTE back then, but I'm going to use our language. You used to go down the hallway, and it was the end of the school, and you could go to automotive repair, or you could go to, right? In education, the pendulum swung such that we started taking them out of schools because we came up with this sort of college-only focus around the country, and we moved CTE programs into these central locations, and that's the reason we built the CAT centers. Now, our CAT centers are the best in the state. They're award-winning, and there are people from around the state and around the country that come see our CAT centers because they're run beautifully. But as that pendulum swings, and we know that we really need to engage students, and I'm going back to your initial comments, in hands-on, if that's what your thing is, we want to give that to you, right? We want to give you those opportunities. That is, we are reconstructing and building high schools. We're starting to build those programs back into the schools. So it's not just you can access at CAT North, but now Phoenix has a culinary program, and Northeast has a culinary program, and Severna Park, and so and they've got some database management and print and design. And so as we are designing into our new schools, some of these, we're trying to build some of those CTE programs back into the schools so we can expand the access, right? We talk about opportunities. Those are opportunities for students that we want you to take advantage of. We are really glad you were here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Shaheen.
I actually don't have a question anymore because Dr. Arlotto, you just answered it beautifully, and I'm really happy to know that the pendulum is swinging back, and that those things are going to be more available. Those types of programs are going to be more available in our individual high schools and not solely and only at the two CAT centers, however fabulous they are. So thank you for answering that.
And let me also add to that for the public that we're focusing, because we know we're not going to get every child in every program, and so we're also really focusing and spending a lot of time, Dr. McMahon and her team, on internships, right? Here's another place where you can do your academics at the school and then get out of the building and go do an internship, really. And that's another place you can get your hands on the work that you might want to do. And so we've got about 40% of our seniors now that are finishing with some kind of internship. We'd love to have 100% leave school with some kind of experience. And sometimes that experience is not great, but there's a lot you can learn from doing something you don't like, right? You can say, you know what, I don't need to spend any more time doing that. I need to focus my efforts somewhere else. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Masters, and I'm here tonight to talk about a transportation issue that I've been having. On August 12th, I contacted the transportation department. I'm sorry, I'm nervous.
You're fine.
About an issue with my daughter. And so she started middle school this year, and she's riding the bus this year for the first year. And my husband is the one who takes her to take her to the bus stop, and he's a wheelchair user. So I contacted the transportation department to see if how close the bus stop was, and I was concerned because our neighborhood has no sidewalks, to see if there was an instance where we could either move a stop to our road at the end of the road so he could see her from our house, or if even they could pick up at our driveway. And I was told that couldn't be done. That they had one stop and it was 2 blocks away. So the bus schedules came out, and I noticed that there was 2 stops on the same road 2 blocks away. So we have 2 bus stops in our neighborhood, all on the same road. I contacted, I found out that we have 3 6th graders on our road alone. And I made another attempt to contact the transportation department to see if maybe one of those stops could be moved to our road to help accommodate us. And I never received a response back. Our PTA president, Eva Reynolds, she also contacted Sharon Witcher at the transportation department and Julie Hummer, who to help advocate for us. And I've never received any response at all from the transportation department. From Sharon Witcher, I've sent her 2 emails. I've received no response from either, except for she has responded to Eva Reynolds on a couple occasions. On the second day of school, we realized that we have the 2 bus stops, and there's 4 students in our neighborhood that are utilizing the bus in our neighborhood. 1 girl at 1 stop, and the 3 children from our street are utilizing the other stop. The bus driver, and we noticed that the bus driver travels down our road already. So I again asked if there's a way to move that stop over to our road. Okay, and I basically didn't receive any responses. I finally received a response from Alex Zachnowitz from the Board of Education, and he stated that they found a ADA compliant bus stop, but it's in another neighborhood. So we would have to travel through, my husband and my daughter would have to travel through Pasadena Elementary School, cross a major road, Pasadena Road, just to catch the bus. So I just feel like I'm at a loss. I've submitted a complaint with the ADA, and I realize that the transportation department is swamped, but I feel like we're just being told, I'm sorry that your husband's disabled and he can't get your daughter to the stop, but we can't do anything.
Thank you for that testimony. Ms. Allen.
So I'm so sorry that you had to deal with all of this. I would like to direct the superintendent to please ask his staff to help accommodate for the situation as quickly as possible.
We're certainly glad to do that. This is not new to us. It's been brought to us by several parents, Ms. Reynolds included. I know our transportation staff has responded 2 times that I know, because I've seen the response. And I know it's not the response you wanted, but I know that our staff has been out there to look at the stops. I asked them earlier this week, I think it was Monday, it's all confusing to me, to take one more look at it based on what your request has been. And so the Transportation Department is taking another look at it. I met with Mr. Shaknovich this morning to ensure that that was going on. So I know that there have been responses. I know the responses, they're not what you're looking for. We believe that the current route and stops are safe and accessible. There is a sidewalk that I know students can access on the upper side of the Pasadena Elementary School, but I've asked them to take another look at it to see if we can make the accommodation that you are looking for. There are no promises, but I asked them now for the 3rd time to take a look at it, and we will do that. Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Shaw.
I just have one question. The bus already travels by your house on the...
Yes. And there's 2 stops on the other road, and the only people at the 2nd stop, they all live on our street. So they would be happy if they could just move the stop at Catalpa at Chestnut over to Spruce, like Spruce and Hamburg. Then the 3 students who are on our road can go to that stop, and they could eliminate 1 stop, and she already goes down our road anyway.
So it goes right past your house?
Right past our house.
So I guess I would just encourage Mr. All right, you don't like my way I'm asking, that's fine, but I would like to encourage an addition of, if the bus is traveling literally right in front of the house, why can't the bus stop? I don't know.
I agree.
I really don't want to get into a debate and talk about transportation now, because I just don't think it's appropriate. I want to look into the issue further. I'm aware of it. We've agreed to take another look at it. But a question like that, Ms. Schalheim, a bus travels in front of the house, and why can't you just stop? Because our buses travel in front of thousands of houses every day.
No, I
we
understand.
get requests every year for, can you just stop in front of our house, right?
No,
and I don't
understand.
want to, please, I'm not trying to minimize the fact that your husband's in a wheelchair. I'm trying to say that we are operating we're transporting over 60,000 students, and we get requests all the time, can you stop in front of my child's daycare center, my child's karate studio on the way home, in front of my house? And we can't make all those accommodations, particularly when we're looking at our transportation trying to be more effective and more efficient. More efficient is fewer stops.
No, I
Right?
completely
and so
understand.
We've had that conversation.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I didn't know if there was. Well, I'll ask you later, but I completely understand what you're saying. Thank you.
And the other thing I would just add, and a couple more board members would like to speak to. Certainly any decision that's made by the superintendent of schools, you're able to appeal to the Board of Education. And I just want to caution my colleagues on the board right now, by making too many comments showing partiality here, you would have to recuse yourself from the eventual vote should this person appeal to the board. So I just want to caution the board at this time, using Dr. Arlotto's advice, to not get into this debate here in public session. Mr. Grannon.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. With that advice in mind, I'm not going to comment other than to say, I think, just as a point of clarification for Dr. Arlotto's response back to Ms. Schalheim, at least as I understood it, and I'm not kind of tipping my hand as to which way I would, vote on this if it ever came before us, but the proposal was sort of stop neutral, if you will, in terms it wasn't adding a stop, it was moving a stop. So I actually would like to hear from Mr. Shaknovich tonight as to what is the problem, why there cannot be a stop here? Is it because there's a lack of a sidewalk? Is that the reason?
And we're going to, as I said, we're going to go back and take a look at it with the transportation team, and then we're going to make a decision about what the parents' request is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I've been waiting to hear from you all night. I just want to say we got 11 days, go Navy, beat Air Force. So, please.
Good evening, all. Board members, Dr. Alato. I'm here to my name is Kenneth Starks. I'm here to represent Annapolis Education Commission. We have several topics, and I'll be brief with them. The first that we discussed in our previous meeting was the ability to have more than 48 hours for non-emergency bus stop switches or changes that we can have, that the parents can be notified within those within 48 hours through the mass communication that you use. The second will be, gotta come off my glasses, I'm getting old, the possibility for Wally H. Bates Middle School to have a student resource officer. I know that's a murky water, a murky conversation, but being a staff member at Bates Middle School and then one at Annapolis Middle, I can see the need. Topic 3, Parent Connect issues for parents who just got on the original Parent Connect and now it's changed, the format's changed. What could be done to assist those parents to adjust quickly? Some parents, I know for a fact, it took 5 years for them to get on Parent Connect. And that's going to start that whole process all over again. Their kids will be in college or not by then. I want to go forward with, it's, the fourth one is a little, it has a couple columns in it, a couple abbreviations or whatever. Would like bus tracking application and reliable transportation for students with disabilities. Long commutes up to 2 hours and 40 minutes. Cause the students to miss 74 days of school. And 800 buses already have GPS installed, and other school systems do provide tracking system for parents. And can these things be done for our, for all of our kids? And thank you for your time. That's really all I have. And thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mrs. Schalheim.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I appreciate it. I guess this is a question I'd just like to put out in the universe and throw to Mr. Shaknovich for an answer. How about next meeting, since we have the transportation report anyway, is why I know that our own fleet of buses, we contract to, I think, 19 some odd contractors, and I know we don't necessarily have GPS systems in those, but I know we do for our own fleet of buses, and our own fleet of buses is only for special needs, and I would like to know more about piloting at least a tracking program, an app to track where your bus is for those set of buses, and I just want to know more about why we can't pilot that. We have the GPS system there, and we know that these apps are readily available. Then I want to know more about what that might entail and cost, and why can't we not at least pilot this to prove its worth, so that people don't stand out waiting for their bus. And at the beginning of the year, it's always a mess. And quite rightly, we're transporting 63 some odd thousand kids every day. But it would just take the edge off, especially for those populations. And then I'd also like to know back from staff about the SRO question at Bates Middle, and if there's a list. I'm sure there's like a wish list, and like where Bates might be on that list. And I agree with, we can always improve our communication and on this and on everything, and notification to parents about bus stop changes, I think would be brilliant. I don't even know that the bus drivers know who's on their own bus, but it could be like it could be just another reminder, like make sure parents, you check the website, because changes are always happening. And I know that we've started to do that, and I just encourage us to do that more. And I'm really grateful for your testimony. Thank you so much.
So I'm sorry to jump in. Let me address a couple of those things. Well, for Ms. Schalheim,
okay.
And then, but you sit right there and listen, because they were your questions, sure. Right? Let me start with the SRO issue. Bates is not on the list for SROs because Bates is inside the city limits, and so our Anne Arundel County Police Department cannot be SROs in those buildings. They don't have the same authority. So we are in conversations with the mayor of Annapolis, and I'll be meeting soon with the new police chief. I used to meet regularly with the previous police chief, and I will meet. He and I were together in the same room the other day, and we got a chance to catch up and officially meet, but he and I are going to have coffee or lunch or something coming up and talk about what we can do into the future. But the initial response is they're inside the city limits, so it's a different jurisdiction.
Right. One thing, I remember working at Bates like 4 or 5 years ago, and we had an Anne Arundel County SRO in the building. What changed, I guess?
I can't answer that.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry. I would leave that to our police chief, gotcha. But I've been in constant communication with our police chief. Would love to, and everybody knows it, I'd love to have an SRO full-time at Bates. Yeah. I'm with you on that, but I've got to, we've got to work it out with, sure. With police department here in Annapolis, in the city of Annapolis. And regarding the bus tracking app, it's something that we're working on. We're going to try and see if we can conduct a pilot with our 50 buses. It's Mr. Sheknovich's team has already begun the research. I would caution you on saying that that it's out there that the apps work, because some of our initial research is telling us that they're not all that.
That's right.
And so we have to find one that we find out from other school systems as big as us that work. But his team has already begun that process to see if we can pilot it on the buses that we own, because we have GPS on them.
I am thrilled to hear that. Thank you, Dr. Arlato. And yeah, I mean, the purpose of piloting is to see not only if it works, but if it works for us. And I'm grateful that you all are looking into that. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Ms. Antwine.
Thank you. Sir. Come on, Navy.
Yes, go Navy.
So you mentioned Parent Connect. So I'm no longer an official parent in the system. Kind of, sort of. In fact, but Parent Connect was a challenge for me from elementary on. So could you share some of the challenges that you're experiencing with the new system, please?
Sure. Just for staff, I mean, not even with Parent Connect, just staff in the schools. I noticed that at Annapolis High School, we had to take several days to learn how to go to the new Parent Connect, because it's all married, and I think it's a great idea. It's just going to take time like everything else, right? So with the parents, the biggest obstacle we're facing is reluctancy. You have a lot of parents who are reluctant to join a program, to join this, right? And then they get on it, and they get on Parent Connect, and ironically, the kids' grades improve because now the parents engage, and that's the whole intention. Then you switch the system, and then you start the procedure all over again on where you have to go, and then the same hiccups occur, meaning you go to the parent and you say, okay, we're going to have this training session on how to do it. And then the frustration sets in, and then the computers close, and I can't do this right now.
Right.
You know, you get that, and I don't have time, and then you almost, you're starting over again, and it's not a blame piece. It's more of a, I guess we need better tutorials, I guess, on how to do it, and more information to the parents on, hey, how to get on this for dummies kind of format. You know what I mean? Like really elementary. Because unfortunately, I can't speak for on anything, but some parents are, and some people are looking for a reason to say, I knew it wouldn't work, I knew it. So then it almost gives them that out when it doesn't work. and we want to eliminate that out.
So Dr. Arlotto, when we bring on new software such as Parent Connect, which there's a grand, as being superintendent, you understand the grand dependency on that communication between the parent and the teacher. Am I understanding that the legacy system is stopped and only the new one is being, or is it a transition where they're allowing the parents to transition off the old and into the new?
It is the new system. The new system is up and running.
So with that being the case, I believe it would benefit the school system to put out more information about the use of Parent Connect, that change, and also some alternatives to the parents that, like me, it would throw me for a loop. I could tell you that if I had to switch up in Parent Connect, allowing the parents to have some kind of other alternative until they can get set up.
So certainly, your latter point, Ms. Antoine, I don't know that we can, we don't have the ability to maintain the old system and have the new system up and running. But point well made, thank you. If the information, there was information that was sent out to parents, there is information on how to log on and how to create your new log on and do those things. But if it's not reaching the right people or people aren't able to understand our terminology, then that's good feedback, and we'll sit down with the team and review it.
Well,
I've got the data team shaking their head, so if that's good feedback.
Yes.
But I do know that we put information out so the parents can say, now what do I need to do to access grades?
Thank you, Dr. Arlotto. I would also request that there be a little bit of change management in terms of the transition, allowing the parents, the students, and the teachers to kind of coordinate together more effectively until we get used to the new system.
Mrs. Hummer.
I just want to say that we did see it back to school nights, and I saw it at our schools, my children's schools, but also I saw it on Twitter that many of the schools at back to school night had staff and members who were set up there that night to help parents to log in and help to teach them. So they are providing opportunities, and I know PTAs are doing it as well. So they're trying to reach out to parents and help them with that as they come on.
I want to thank you for this opportunity. My name is Tracy Brennan, and I'm here to talk about a school resource officer at Bates Middle School. I apologize that I was not seated before this gentleman so that I could approach this prior to his list of requests and initiatives. But as a parent, I have two students in Anne Arundel County Schools. I have a son at South River in the STEM program, and I have a son at Bates in the PVA program. And so we're county residents, but my son does go to a city school. I don't want to overspeak to the issue. I know you are actually meeting now with the police chief, which I was going to give him a call myself. But the question I have is, you know, Bates is an Anne Arundel County public school. Why wouldn't they have the same equity of resources? So as a parent, I would want to see all of my children to have the same sort of safety and security within the school, you know, from internal, you know, a resource officer offers a deterrent for internal and external threats to the students. And I just feel at this point that, you know, it's a county school. What can we do for those students at Bates? I'm happy to work with you. I'm happy to meet with the police chief and provide any additional information at this point. But we're happy with the program, but we're county folks, and we're just looking for some equity of resources at this point. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony tonight. We have two more cards, Andrew Fox and Kevin Street.
Hi, my name is Andrew Fox. Thank you for letting me speak. I'll be relatively brief. I am a father of Rolling Knolls students. I'm speaking to Rolling Knolls, the community, the new school, and the traffic concerns and safety concerns we have. The original plan for Rolling Knolls, if any of you are familiar, was a very large project, and it consisted of sidewalks and traffic calming. there was a huge push from the neighborhood to move the entrance further into the neighborhood so that there wasn't a large backup of cars in front of about 4 houses that were the main issue. Well, the school was built, the entrance was moved. None of the sidewalks on the south side of the neighborhood were constructed on the south side of the neighborhood, so before the bus loop. And no traffic calming was installed. So since the school was opened, we've been really working with Shira and other people in the county and our representatives to try to bring light to this and say we don't have anything. So you come off General's Highway, you turn on Knollwood Drive, you come around the bend. It is a quarter mile, unobstructed quarter mile until you get to the entrance of the school. There's no stop signs. There are no speed bumps. There are no signs. There's one small sign at the beginning that just shows like a school sign. There's nothing. We understand the budget concerns. We requested sidewalks, and we understand the money that goes into extending certain sidewalks. We were requesting sidewalks to the southwest portion in front of 4 houses because that connects the old part of the neighborhood where we have about 7 to 8 kids, elementary kids that walk, but we have dozens of middle school and high school kids that walk that way. So presently we walk on the street to get up to the school, or we walk through the neighbors' yards, depending on when it is, and it's smaller than the normal width of a road. So we work really hard with Shira to shed some light on this because a kid's going to get hit. There's no doubt about it. We have an ongoing traffic study right now to clock speeds and everything else, and we'll see where that goes because that now is placed between the bus loop and the original turn to get into the neighborhood. So pretty much the goal is to shed light on the effort that's been going on for 3 years. We now have a new principal that came in very late. She's very busy. We're going to continue the dialogue with her. We have the county coming out doing another traffic study. When I finally got with the county and they said, okay, we don't have budgets for sidewalks, and the original plan was to put like this crazy traffic calming that had lights and electricity and everything else. I said, I don't want any of that. I want 2 stop signs. I want a stop sign at the front of the bus loop and on the other side of the bus loop. It just cuts it in half. It's a simple fix. It fixes so many things, and it's dangerous every single day. And for 3 years, it's just been trouble. So we're requesting that we have some sort of dialogue with the board to help us put pressure on the county to get us 2 stop signs and possibly in the future consider sidewalks on the south side of the neighborhood. That's it.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Arlotto. Everything I say tonight is not to impress anyone, but just to express my observations and feelings. My name is Kevin Street. I have a Doctor of Medicine degree and an Executive MBA from the University of Maryland. I moved to Anne Arundel County to Arnold 3 years ago. My other duties, I coach boys soccer at Annapolis High School. I'm a former professional soccer player as well. And I'm very appalled with the failure rates in the schools at Annapolis High School. I was given a list at the beginning of the school year. We had 346 students that were ineligible to play sports. Just ineligible. That's 16.5% of the school population. That to me should be unacceptable in any institution of education. Furthermore, the population of that 346, over 90% represent the minority population, Latinos and African Americans. Myself, I'm an immigrant. My mom came here. I came here years later. And some of these people are just behind. And a friend of mine wrote a book, and it says most sickness is homesickness. We need to understand what's going on in the home. We have kids with 0.0 GPA, 0.3, 0.5. I speak to these kids every day. I'm in the community. I make my life so flexible. Between August 14th and the end of October, I just literally drop my medical practice, my work and everything, and just dedicate to soccer and talk to these kids. On Sundays, I'm at the Latino leagues down at Bates, and trying to figure out what's going on. Most of these kids are running their houses. They're not going to school. I had one player who missed 74 days of school last year, right? I have kids right now who can't play because they're working 30 hours a week. Where's the American dream? This is impossible. We need to do something much better to help these children to navigate through the system. They have different needs. I heard that young lady spoke eloquently about the CAT program. It requires at least a 2.0 GPA. Most of these kids, they want hands-on stuff. They're not getting the grades to qualify for that. What are we doing? It's an erosion of our society. You know, America is a great melting pot. I lived in England, I've lived in Spain, parts of South America. This is the greatest country on earth. It gives you the dream. My mom was a single parent with 3 kids living in Silver Spring, Maryland. Everyone knows what the rent is like there, right? She has a kid who's a doctor, a lawyer, and a Wall Street trader, and never took $1 from the U.S. government in aid, right? These people are just like me. They want to work hard. They want to contribute to society, but we're failing them. I see them every day, and I'm just trying to figure out what is it that we're going to do? What can we do? There are people like myself who are willing to go into the school and help. I have a network of people that we can put resources together to help, but we need your support or advice on what can we do. All right? Thank you very much for your time. All right.
Thank you, Doctor. Mrs. Schallheim.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I'm wondering, just like the gentleman earlier in the evening, if oh, I see you were getting up to talk to him. Yeah, no, that was what I was going to ask. So that's great. I'm glad you two are going to connect. But I also want to understand maybe from staff what the qualifications are to play sports, and if there's room there to account for maybe if they're not hitting a threshold of the 2.0 or whatever, but if a student improves over time, and that if that can be take the place of the I guess I just want to know more about what the requirements are to play sports and how the eligibility or ineligibility works for that and for Cat North and Cat South, if that's possible.
Sure, we'll certainly we'll address the sports since we've got.
I just use sports as a platform. You know, it's just a platform.
Right, sure. But certainly Dr. Street knows that we're obligated by the state to have some minimum grade point averages to play a sport.
All right, so it's
every jurisdiction, all 24 jurisdictions in the state, do it a little bit differently. We have probably, I would say, is the most progressive methodology of declaring somebody eligible, because you can be ineligible at the beginning of the season, and we give them a time period where there has to be some tutoring, and they get a time to bring their grades up, where then they can play. Correct, Coach?
Correct, because we just had some players reinstated.
Right, get reinstated, but they can be put on probationary status. They've got to meet with somebody several times a week and sign in. They've got to see teachers. They've got to get some work done. I'm being very short on my comments, but Coach knows what I'm talking about. Most jurisdictions do not do that. Most jurisdictions are you hit the date of March 1st for spring sports. I'm making that up, and you either have the GPA or you don't. In Anne Arundel County, we are very proud of and have cultivated this progressive system, because we know sometimes all the students don't hit the mark at the same time, and so we try and give them some more time to build that. If I could just say, Coach, thank you. I think you know what makes the difference. It's individual people like you, right?
Yes, sir.
It's the individual teacher in the classroom or out on the ball field, or is teaching the kids a club after school, FBLA we heard, or the theater coach, right? Getting the student connected to school, all of a sudden they start showing up, and they start taking their grades seriously because they get an adult in their life that cares about them and says you can do this, right? And so I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. I just want one question. Is there any way we can set up some type of after-school tutoring program? I don't know if something is in place already, but what I'm saying is that we can get people, we have educators who are willing to lend time as a resource to do so. And that's something I think that would be important for some of these kids, because there's, you know, the ones who are in school, they're also struggling, but the first thing is to get them there, right? And that's what I'm trying to make sure. And it's not just for a student who plays sports, but for every student, because we want Annapolis to be much better. I live in Arnold, my kids go to Broadneck, but I'm dedicated to helping the kids who are being marginalized, right? Okay, thank you.
So if and when we can find the staff or other volunteers, we get a lot of that in the elementary schools, which is great. Volunteers that want to come in and read with kids and do work with students. One of the things that has been, that has occurred over time in our schools, and you're aware of it at Annapolis High School with Panther Hour, right? So it's a time, because many of the students that we're trying to get, that you're talking about, aren't going to stay after school for tutoring.
Correct.
Right? Once they're gone for the day, right? And so we're trying to build more time in during the day. So Broadneck High School has Bruin Block, right? Yep. And it's divided into maroon and gray. And Annapolis has Panther Hour, and South River has the Nest Hour, right? And so these are times where students can not only attend clubs and hopefully get connected, check in and see a coach. I think Ms. Schalheim and I went, we were during the Bruin Block, we were visiting Broadneck High School. We just happened to go into the soccer coach's classroom during that time. And guess who was in there?
It was packed.
It was packed with students. Many of them soccer players, but many not, because this is somebody that kids connected to. And so we're trying to find those opportunities to build into the school day, because the exact students that we want, that you're talking about, that we want to get in touch with, aren't staying after school.
Yes, sir.
Right? If we even get them to come to school in the first place, you talked about that student that you knew that had 74 absences, right? You're absolutely right. It's unacceptable. But we have to continue to build programs that attract students. We have to continue to find what we call kid magnets, right? Somebody the kids are attracted to, and then that gets them better engaged at school. But those times during the school day, like Panther Hour, give them a chance to go back to their school. I was at Panther Hour today when we got a chance to meet for an hour, and they're out there going to their classrooms to getting help from their teachers.
Okay.
That's the
All right.
point.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you for being
Good
here.
night.
Is there, with regard to the requirements to get into Cat North and South, is there any sort of, to reach those kids and improve their success in school, is there any sort of minutes on a probationary status to then work up, just like you're doing with
So the short answer is no. There isn't a progressive program like that, because we have so few slots and so many students that want to apply. But what we do is we have exploratory programs in the 9th grade. And so we encourage more and more, counselors are encouraging 9th graders to get into the exploratory programs, so we get the hook early. So they go for a semester, and during that semester, they're getting the transportation there, and they are able to engage in 4 different programs of their choice. It could be culinary and construction trades and masonry or whatever it is, and that way we try and get them connected early, so they know, hey, if I want to do this program, I got to work on my grades early so that I can get in the program. Most programs are 2 years. There are some that are 3 years, like cosmetology is a 3-year program. But we try and get them hooked early by doing exploratory programs in the 9th grade.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. We've got one more public comment. I'm sorry.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, Board. Helen Wilkerson, President of Secretaries Assistants Association. I'm in the county. I always get stuck with that. I'm just here for a second to say thank you. I was unable to attend the day we ratified with you because it was during the day hours, and of course I had to work. I did not have release time for that day. And from our members, we kindly wish thank you very much. We also like to thank the payroll department, HR, Ms. Hughes, for being so expeditious in getting the compensation to our members and letting them know what their raises are in step. And we have a lot of happy people
thanks to you all, and of course the county and the executive for putting the money in place. And at this moment, I just like to, if you have not received the invitation, I'd just like to re-invite you and inform you about the CIAC and the AACCPTAS Joint Professional Development Day effort that we're having for the first time, which will be at Brooklyn Middle and Brooklyn Park Middle from 8 to 3 on the 15th of October. If you get a second, we'd like to see you stop by and see what's going on. This is really big. We have full house, 300 participants, and about 70 on waiting list. So we're really glad that we are able to do that this year. And thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Shawheim.
Sorry, what was that date again?
October 15th.
Thank you.
Ms. Antoine. Every single.
President Gillen, I have a comment about earlier testimony. Is now the time?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. I wanted to address what Judge Barber shared with us about the zero tolerance for bias language and behavior at our schools. I want to first say the incident that was mentioned, I appreciate that the actions that have been taken so far by our coaches, by our community, and certainly by our students, recognizing that wrong is wrong. The zero tolerance comes in the form of everybody, and it takes a sincere effort. Tonight we'll address biased behavior and language, and I think that an incident like this proves that such policies need to be updated, and that our stance as a county, as a county system, as a state entity, our stance on how we treat each other makes all the difference in how we do that together. So we'll start tonight with policy and move forward from there.
Well said. Thank you, Ms. Antoine. We'll now move, again, as the revised agenda now has item 7.02, biased behavior and language. This is a third reading policy revision. So, Dr. Arlotto, can we have your recommendation, please?
Yes, sir. I recommend board approval of policy JO, subject to final correction for style, and format.
Great, thank you, Dr. Arlotto. And Mrs. Corkadel, I know we had tabled this from the prior meeting, so I know we already have a motion on the floor, so I'll turn to you.
Thank you, President Gilliland. You're absolutely correct. As you recall, we did adopt language record that was designed to mirror in similar for the bullying policy that we passed last time. And if you also recall, there was a serious question raised by our policy attorney, and in the absence of our attorney being present, we decided to table it, although we did go through the votes to vote in the amendment that was requested. And so based on information obtained since then with legal counsel, I would like to formally move to rescind the motion that was originally provided and instead propose a motion that we adopt policy JO as presented in the third reader with the following amendment: that nothing in this policy is and this is going to be, my apologies here, essentially what we want to do is reference back over to bullying based on legal definitions and state law and federal law. So I'm proposing a amendment in replacement that under section C, that we create a subsection 6 that states the following: nothing in this policy is intended to limit or otherwise affect the purpose, position, and implementation of Board Policy JCCA titled Bullying, Cyberbullying, Harassment, and Intimidation that was just passed during our last session.
Okay.
Second.
So we've got two things, if I may, and I'm just using my cheat sheet here. I just want to make sure we do things right. So there's a difference between withdrawing and rescinding, and in this case, because the vote had occurred, we need to rescind, and rescinding requires a 2/3 vote. So, and no, I'm sorry, I didn't have my cheat sheet in hand when we were. So if I may ask you just to temporarily pause on the amendment that you'd like to make. We need to vote to rescind what had previously passed. So this, Mrs. Howe, 2/3 vote required, so 6 votes of the board required to rescind Mrs. Corkadel's prior amendment. Would you please call the roll?
Did there need to be a motion, a second? And
I had already motioned it, so it's, yeah, and it was seconded, yes.
Thank you. Beginning with Mr. Leib.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer?
Aye.
Ms. Alvey?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadel?
Aye.
Mr. Grannon?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Antwine?
Aye.
Mr. Gilliland?
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
Okay, so now we're formally rescinded, and now we'll take the new motion.
Okay, so to state again, I would like to present a motion that states that under Section C, a new subsection of 6 be created to state that nothing in this policy is intended to limit or otherwise affect the purpose, position, and implementation of Board Policy JCCA titled Bullying, Cyberbullying, Harassment, and Intimidation. And then I just wanted to make a couple commentary. As I said in the beginning, we want to make sure that we get it right. And so I am proposing this because this will, in effect, allow the intent of political affiliation to be carried out through our policy in a manner that does not conflict with other intents. And bias behavior fell under that category, unbeknownst to me. And so, working collaboratively with our advisement of attorney, this was recommended, and I am now requesting adoption.
Okay, so now we have the motion and the second. Board discussion, Ms. Antwine.
I have a question for you, Ms. Ortiz. The last meeting we requested, the request came from you to introduce additional language. Does the language that you're introducing to us tonight, does it align with the motion, or is it something different?
So this motion will take care of, I'm sorry, for the record, Jeanette Ortiz, Legislative and Policy Council. So Ms. Corkadel's motion will take care of the concerns that I and staff had with the initial proposed language.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further board questions or comments? Again, this is just on Mrs. Corkadel's amendment at this point. Seeing none, any public comment on the amendment only? Seeing none, Mrs. Howe, this is a vote on Mrs. Corkadel's amendment. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Leib?
Aye.
Ms. Hummer? Ms. Alvey?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadel?
Aye.
Mr. Grannon?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Antwine?
Aye.
Mr. Gilliland?
Aye.
Amendment passes 9-0.
Great, thank you. And now we're back to do we need to do
Vote on the policy as amended.
Vote on the policy itself.
Okay, all right, so any board discussion and comment on the larger policy that's being considered? Seeing no board questions or comments, public, oh, yeah.
Very quick, sorry. You almost did. I guess I just want to take this opportunity, maybe we don't do enough of this up here, but to commend Ms. Corkadel for thinking about the concerns of all of our students and introducing this this concern about political bias and politically motivated bullying, and then also for being thoughtful and responsible enough to take the advice of legal counsel in terms of, being okay with implementing that change to the bullying policy and not to the bias policy for the reasons stated. So I just want to commend you for your thoughtfulness on that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Grannon. We'll now move to public comment. We have one card on this, Mary Dodoni, and anybody else that would like to comment on this policy, you're welcome to come forward at this time.
Hello, President Gilliland, Dr. Arlaudo, members of the board, staff of AACPS and senior leadership, and representatives of the public, both present tonight and watching us online, or who will be watching us online. I come before you this evening at the explicit direction of President Jacqueline Alsop of the Anne Arundel County NAACP and representing our branch's members in our position with respect to the bias behavior and language policy and regulation. As our second Vice President Barber testified, the NAACP receives many complaints of biased behavior and language each year. Most, but not all of these, are explicitly related to racial and ethnic bias. Not all of these make their way into the complaint system, and we hear of more than we receive. I suspect you've heard it too. The N-word, and I know people bolder would also use terms for young girls, hoes and sluts, are thrown around regularly on the buses and in the school halls. At least that's what we hear. The Anne Arundel County NAACP strongly believes and advocates for passing of this policy. It is in the spirit of community collaboration, which has been elevated by Dr. Arlaudo and County Executive Pittman, that we come to you tonight. We thank you for your commitment, and we continue to offer ours in seeing that this is enforced. However, and I don't know if however is appropriate, in addition, the incident that Second Vice President Barber presented is just one example of the type of biased language our constituents faced regularly in AACPS and at AACPS events. The frequency of these events and incidents is known in the public. I echo the sentiment that there must be a zero tolerance policy. It is widely accepted that most regular reason for referrals is insubordination and, I want to say disrespect, but thank you. We know the incidents with which those behaviors are punished, and we know the incidents with which bias language is not punished. It sends a terrible message to the community. We believe that the policies in place are sufficient. If we look at the student code of conduct, we know that first offenses can receive a variety of interventions and consequences. But if all that ever happens is a referral to a parent, the message to the community is, I believe, unacceptable. Thank you very much for hearing us.
Thank you, Dr. Dodoni. Any further public comment on this policy? Mrs. Hummer, sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Dodoni. I just want to echo, we've been working on this policy for a long time, and I think it's important, and it's important to break out our bias behavior and to emphasize how much is there. And I would also say to the public what we say all the time, we cannot respond to what we don't know about. So if these incidents are happening, we need to know about them. We ask for parents and students to report these things because we can't address what we don't know about. And we can't change cultures of school if we don't know. So we need on our end to be enforcing, but we also need the public to be coming to us. And so we appreciate you speaking out and have that, and I would share that out. Let us know of these things so that we can enforce these policies that we believe in so strongly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Hummer. Any further board questions or comments, summary comments? Seeing none, Policy JO, Bias Behavior and Language, is on third reading for final approval. Mrs. Howe, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Lyde?
It was already near that.
Ms. Hummer? Ms. Alvey?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadel?
Aye.
Mr. Grannon?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Proudly aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Antwine?
Aye.
Mr. Gilliland?
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Ortiz, thank you as always. We'll now revert back to our consent items. We have 2 items. Is there a motion to bundle items 6.01 and 6.02? Motion second. All in favor say aye. Opposed no. The ayes have it. We now have an action item. Dr. Arlotto, can we have your recommendation, please?
Yes, sir. I recommend board approval of the 2 contracts listed on today's agenda, 6.01 and 6.02.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second motion and a second. Any board comments or questions? Any public comment? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Antwine.
I just have one question about the business program. Wanted to know if this program was, is it just an enrichment opportunity for the students, or is it fully integrated into the lessons of the school?
Sure. For the record, Alex Schechner, the Chief Operating Officer. So it is fully integrated into the curriculum. Youngsters have access to it inside of their instructional period, inside of their instructional block. They have and that's part of the curriculum, right? They have access to it during their extended day. They also have access to it from home. And from home, they can either use it, it can either be assigned as a homework assignment, or it can be for additional, for some of our, motivated students that have a lot of spare time on their hands. They can learn more math and science instead of some other electronic device. But yeah, it's integrated and it's very easy to get to. It's on our splash page. It's accessible to all of our students and staff.
And then when this time because over time this program changes, and I didn't get here. This program has been in our system since 2006.
Sure, Michael.
So how often is the program updated to reflect?
Sure. So I mean, we've got a contract for a period, but the structure of that product is it's a catalog of items. So it's a catalog of problems and solutions and experiments, et cetera. So that catalog is being continuously updated and expanded by the vendor. It's not we buy it today and 12 months from now it looks exactly word for word as it is today. That would be true for a textbook, but because this is a catalog of electronic items, it is continuously getting updated and added to and supplemented by the vendor.
Thank you, Ms. Antwine. Okay, any other board questions or comments? Any public comment? Seeing none, this is a vote on the consent calendar. Mrs. Howell, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Lai? Aye. Ms. Hummer? Aye. Ms. Alvey?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadel?
Aye.
Mr. Grannon?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Antwine?
Aye.
Mr. Gilliland?
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
Great, thank you. Item 7.01 is the administrative personnel appointment placeholder. There are none tonight. Item 7.02 has already been considered. We now move to item 7.03, Superintendent's recommended fiscal year 2021 capital budget 6-year plan and state CIP. This is an action item. Dr. Arlotto, can we have your recommendation, please?
Yes, sir. I recommend board approval in adopting the FY 2021 capital budget 6-year plan and state capital improvement plan, or CIP.
Excellent. It's a motion and a second. And we do have a staff presentation at this time, so we'll defer to Mr. Shachnovich and Ms. Seaman Crawford.
For the record again, Alex Shachnovich, Chief Operating Officer.
Lisa Seaman Crawford, Director of Facilities.
And item 7.03 is brought to you this evening as an action item regarding the capital budget. It contains both the FY 21 capital budget, the 6-year plan, and the state subcomponent of the capital improvement plan. It is a requirement of all LEAs to submit the plan to the Interagency Commission on School Construction annually. The date set this year is October 4th of 2019 if we want to become eligible for any state funding to support the CIP. The item was read into the record on September the 11th as an information item, and a workshop was held on the 12th of September 2019. Again, the purpose of this action item is to allow us to remit our request to the state for state funding. There will be additional opportunities for dialogue and deliberation regarding the CIP that will occur between the months of December and February when we begin to march towards our combined operating and capital budget requests of the county government. And with that, Mr. President, we turn it back over to you and your colleagues.
Great. Thank you so much to both of you. Mrs. Schallheim.
Hi, good evening. Thank you again for this and for the workshop, which I found very informative, and I'm grateful for that. I don't remember if I asked this question at the workshop or not, and just for my own personal knowledge, how's it going finding the land for the West County Elementary School project?
So we are in ongoing dialogue and discussions with the new county administration, just we were with the prior county administration. As you may or may not know, that land acquisition is not a function of a Board of Education. We don't have either the capacity or the tools, or in many cases the statutory ability to do that. So we are wholly reliant on the county government to do that. Within the county government, the Public Works Department is actually the entity that does that for all of county government. So again, we've had ongoing dialogue with both the current and prior administrations, but because there is negotiations and strategies and appraisals and offers and counteroffers, we're not really at liberty to give you the specifics, but it's being actively worked on by the appropriate individuals, and the highest levels of county administration know the criticality of this acquisition.
Fantastic. Do you foresee that piece of land being acquired in full to then proceed with all the rest of the project, including the design, by, I don't know, is it 6 months? I mean, what's the sort of timeline that you anticipate?
Unfortunately, I neither have a direct answer to that with specificity, and even if I would, I'd be hesitant to do that.
Understood. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Schallheim. And if I can just piggyback, because a land acquisition question, just for the public record, I know you answered this very eloquently during the workshop, but the questions that are coming into the board, and I think the AACPS in general, about the Old Mill project, or at least what we're tentatively labeling as Old Mill West High School, the land acquisition as it relates to Papa John's Farm. We know the county has that. Papa John's Farm just closed officially about 2 weeks ago. When will that, roughly, when will that deed transfer from the Anne Arundel County government to the Anne Arundel County Public Schools?
So in order, we're asking for construction funding in the year ahead, which will begin July 1st of 2020. So we would anticipate that land transfer occurring relatively close to that. Okay. It's been our posture, Mr. President, that we tend to prefer not to accept the land too early. Once we accept the land, we have full ownership to it. We have to maintain it. We have to lock, stock, and barrel it, cut the grass and everything out there. So it's our preference to allow others to potentially do that for us until the last moment when we actually need it.
Completely understood, and I was betting money that you would say something about mowing the lawn, so thank you for that clarification. Any further board questions or comments on the CIP? We've already had public comment, so at this point, seeing no further board questions or comments, this is a vote on the superintendent's recommended FY 2021 capital budget 6-year plan and state CIP. Oh, we did? Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry, what?
Looking for a motion and a second.
Yeah, we did so moved and second. So, all right, just for clarity, then, can you move the superintendent?
Yeah, so I move that we adopt the recommended capital budget as presented.
Second, okay, yeah. When I had asked Dr. Arlotto made the recommendation, somebody said so moved. So, but we're officially on the record now with the. You did say so moved. So now we have two. So we are perfectly safe at this point. So, Mrs. Howe, would you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Lyde?
Aye.
Ms. Hummer?
Aye.
Ms. Selby?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadel?
Aye.
Mr. Grannon?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Antwine?
Aye.
And Mr. Gilliland?
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
I don't want to be second guessed like that, but not by you. All right, item 7.04 is the FY 2020 Comprehensive Maintenance Plan. This is an action item. Dr. Arlotto, can we have your recommendation, please?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I recommend board approval of the fiscal year 2020 Comprehensive Maintenance Plan.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved and second. Everybody heard that? There's been a motion and a second. Okay. There is no formal staff presentation on this, but staff is here to answer questions, and we do have some board questions and comments. And we'll first turn to Ms. Antwine and then Mrs. Schallheim.
Thank you, President Gillen. So my questions, on page 19 of the package that was shared with us, the title of it is Comprehensive Maintenance Plan 5-Year Summary. The second to the last line talks about water treatment. However, when I went through the plan, it talked about an unfunded requirement for the lead work that is being done in our water. So I was trying to understand the difference between the water treatment that's here and the cost of it, and the identification of the unfunded requirement. If it in here, is this plan indicating that you guys are needing the money and is not there? I'm a little bit confused about those things.
So let us briefly introduce ourselves again. I'm Alex Shaknova, Chief Operating Officer.
Lisa Seaman Crawford, Director of Facilities.
Mike McCafferty, Supervisor of Facilities Maintenance.
So this water treatment line item that you see here, we have a number of schools that are not on public utilities. They're on wells. And we have to extract that water. We have to treat it to bring it to potable standards and then deliver it into the building for distribution. So as a categorical item, we have to budget for when those water extraction, the water treatments, the water conveyance systems. We don't have a requirement. None of those systems are up for replacement in FY21. But if you see from 22 to 25, there's about $1 million worth of those items that would be scheduled for attention. So we're not asking for funding in the current year. So it's unfunded in the current year, but that's because we don't have anything due. But we will have things due in the next few years. So in the next couple of years, you'll see requests coming through for that.
So then that's separate from the lead.
Sure, that's entirely separate. We actually just dealt with that. Well, we dealt with that in a couple ways. One, you just adopted the capital budget. And during the workshop, I think you may recall that we actually, the very first item in the item that you just approved is called Health and Safety 21. The requested value in that capital item was actually increased so that we could have additional capital monies to deploy towards that initiative. Concurrent with that, there was an additional increase in operations and maintenance funding in this current budget, the one that the County Council approved last June, to address that. That was funded. And there was a request for a position, an additional position in this budget that was just adopted this past June. That was funded, and that position has been filled. So I think all the pieces
are coming together.
Right, are in place to address that specific question.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sorry. Yes, Ms. Schallheim?
Hi, good evening. Thank you for this. I read all of it, and I have a few questions. On page 14, well, the title is Additional Responsibilities Included, and it's the fourth bullet down, analyzing schools' electronic consumption profiles via NLX demand response and insight programs. And then it states that currently the system has 50 schools enrolled in this program. What is this, and how can more schools participate?
So you have to have a certain level of consumption. So this is a program that's managed as part of the PGM grid system, the grid system that maintains the Mid-Atlantic portion of the power grid. So it's a program that is put forward by them and managed by them, and they have eligibility criteria. And the eligibility criteria has to do with both total consumption and peak demand. So they create each and every year the prior year's energy consumption on both a macro and peak level is analyzed, and those schools that meet the threshold of being enrolled into the PGM program, the XL demand response system is sort of the code word for it, but it really is a PGM Mid-Atlantic grid system initiative to basically do load shedding during peak time, so they don't have to spin up their cogeneration plants. It avoids brownouts. It avoids peak energy costs for us. But again, those thresholds are established by them, and each and every year we analyze. So only about 50 of our small schools don't even reach the threshold levels to which they would really.
So they have to be high consumers to start with.
Yes, bigger buildings, older buildings, fully air-conditioned building. I mean, all the things that you think would drive up total consumption and peak consumption, because they look at it in both ways as triggers.
And then what sorts of things do we do to shed load? Is that just ticking up the thermostat a few degrees?
No,
Is it
when they issue a call, we have a very limited period of time. All the schools drill on this. We have to turn off air conditioning, we turn off lights, we turn off unneeded equipment. It's essentially a mandatory participatory program. So.
Are students in the building when we're turning off AC?
Potentially, but rarely. These events typically occur in the latter part of the day when we know that that's occurring. One of the things we do is we basically try to pre-cool the buildings. Again, there is warning time. The schools know it's just not an immediate thing, so we've got strategies in place to sort of glide out the rest of the day. So, for example, we'll know, they will let us know that tomorrow is a warning, a potential day, and then that morning they'll sort of give us a sort of insider baseball like we think, or maybe not, and then they'll tell us an approximate time if it's more likely than not. We get the ball rolling in terms of getting, the things in place. But for example, we could go in place at 2 o'clock, and it'll run from like 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock. By then, we can kind of coast out the rest of that day. So
that's great. I know they do this with residential. So thank you for.
Yeah, this is on a very, very big scale, and again, so this really came to be after not our grid, but just north of us, the grid that really covers New York and points east and north of there, suffered some large-scale brownouts and had a multi-day event. So our grid, PGM, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, our section of the world, basically put this in place with all of the utility providers. So us and Delmarva and just all, PEPCO,
cool.
Everybody that's in the region, it's part of the PGM network, is participatory in that, and really it's to prevent large-scale brownouts or blackouts.
Awesome. Thank you for that explanation. And then in the following group of bullet points, I just wanted to say that the third bullet point, awarded 2 purchase power agreements worth over 3 megawatts of solar energy that can offset 50 BGE electric accounts for 20 years and translate to $4 million in electric cost avoidance over the life of the agreements. It's awesome. And I just wanted to say how awesome that is. I think that's really cool. I'm letting my old energy consultant hat show a little bit here, but I think that really makes me excited. I had a couple more questions. I know we partner with Parks and Rec for various stadiums, Serrano Park High School being one of them, and they use the grounds after hours for their various things. Do they, as part of our agreement with them, do they help offset the cost of the lighting, the electric bill for that part?
We have an MOU with them that's rememorialized each and every year, and it's recalibrated each and every year. And the county, through Rec and Parks, we invoice them. They provide us funding for both utilities. So that's a portion of the monies we get from the county through Rec and Parks. And the second piece is we get funding from them for custodial overtime to be able to unlock the buildings, turn the alarms off, things like that.
Awesome. And then I think this is my last question. The following page, page 15, second bullet up at the top, monitoring buildings to ensure maximum comfort within the guidelines. Can you just briefly describe what the guidelines are?
Sure. So, for example, for most facilities, it would be in the cooling season 78 and in the heating season 68. We've got telemetry with the buildings, the networks. The buildings are wired with thermostats. They go back to master controllers. So we've got energy management and building management systems within a building. We've got telemetry from the building out to our energy management system infrastructure out in Fort Smallwood. So those are, for most schools and offices, those are the 2 temperature points.
Fantastic. I'm just flipping through. I thought that was it, but I just want to make sure. Yeah, that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Shahheim. Mrs. Ellis.
Thank you. Can you help me understand very briefly, years 22 to 25, do you have a more comprehensive list as far as what order you're going to do these projects in? I'm particularly interested in the Arundel Middle School ceiling and lighting, because that was one of the things that struck me most when I visited that school that could use.
Sure. So the answer to that is yes, but not in this document. This is a formulaically generated document. So the state puts out guidelines. So you'll see that this format does not really vary from year to year. It's a document that we've got to populate the way that it's presented. So your CIP, our CIP, is a 1-year request,
right,
and then there's a forecast for the out years. And this companion document, so they almost work together, instructs us to basically explicitly define the 1-year request and then to compile the rest of the CIP request. So, and they're, unfortunately, the structure basically has them glommed together. So,
Do you have an estimate off the top of your head about the Arundel Middle School lighting improvement?
well, you'll see that it is in the 22 to 25
Right.
request. You'll see that on page 22, I believe.
Right. I'm just wondering
of the
if-
exhibit. I know we've already been out there and done some assessments of it and things like that. So it is not in the current year request, but we've already started swimming in that direction.
Okay.
Our engineers and electrical department and operations department have already been out. That's how we had to get to the price estimate that you see
Right.
here too. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ellis. Any further board questions or comments? I had one that I wanted to ask that's just mostly a clarifying question. In particular, when I was reading through the summary of the maintenance backlog, just with the classification and the total estimated costs, we're looking at $119 million for HVAC systems. And I just wanted to clarify, because I know the governor and the comptroller in particular have been somewhat critical of some other school systems that don't manage this well. And I think we do an awesome job, and you and your team do an amazing job managing this. But for the public record, the $119 million that's being asked for HVAC, is that mostly preventive maintenance services, or is that to correct air conditioning systems, heat systems, whatever, that may be already malfunctioning?
No. So for the record, all of our instructional spaces, I mean, they're already heated and cooled, so we're not in the same situation as some others.
Right.
This is not, our operating budget supports the maintenance and the preventive maintenance and the scheduled water treatment and everything else that has to do with the existing systems. But every system basically has a planned life cycle, a planned life expectancy. When you buy a air conditioning chiller or a boiler, essentially the manufacturer says this thing is essentially designed and intended to last X years. We know when we bought it, we knew when we installed it, and we know what time X is going to hit us. If you maintain if the product was built very well, you maintain it very well, you do all of its preventive maintenance just like your car, change the oil, change the filters, do it religiously, and are lucky, and it was a good product to start with, you maybe get it longer than that life expectancy. Conversely, if it didn't come off the assembly line the way that everybody intended, or you have bad luck and it gets hit by lightning or any other thing like that, you could have less. So that backlog that you see there is basically the amount of systems that either have or are expected within that time period, 21 to 25, to have exceeded that predetermined manufacturer's estimated life cycle for that component, if that makes any sense. So they are working, but we know that they are getting near what the engineers and the manufacturers had intended for that piece of equipment to be.
Understood, and I appreciate the public clarification. I just worry that for the naked eye that's reading this, someone may interpret that or misinterpret what this is actually saying. So for the record, our students and teachers, et cetera, as you said, instructional spaces are fine.
Yes, sir.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. Any further board questions or comments? Seeing none. Any public comment? Seeing none. This is a vote on fiscal year 2020 comprehensive maintenance plan. Mrs. Howell, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Lyde?
Aye.
Ms. Hummer? Aye. Ms. Alvey?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadel?
Aye.
Mr. Grannon?
Aye.
Ms. Schalheim? Aye. Ms. Ellis? Aye. Mr. Gilliland?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. We'll now move to okay. We'll now move to item 8.01, review items. This is award of contracts. No presentation, but certainly if there are board questions or comments, we can hear those now. Mrs. Schalheim. It's predicted.
I know, I'm sorry, I always have questions. So under award number 1, I noticed that our MBE goal isn't being met. Is that because we tried to engage those particular contractors and they weren't available for that work? Or was there another set of circumstances that?
So this is another set of circumstances. So we basically have a goal of 15% for all of our architectural engineering services.
Yeah.
This is the design and replacement of one discrete item within a building, and it's an item that does not, from a design basis, really have subcomponents, doesn't rely on subconsultants. So for example, if you're designing a building, obviously you've got lead architects, but then you have other opportunities. You have many other engineering disciplines, you have interior design disciplines, et cetera. There are opportunities to pick up, but this is a very discrete item. You have to be to design this, you have to be on the county's approved list of fire protection engineers. You have to be licensed by the state of Maryland as a fire protection engineer capable of doing this. And unfortunately, it's such a small, discrete pool of potential candidates and such a discrete light on the work that we were not able to achieve 15%. That is still documented, so even though somebody doesn't get it, they still have to go through a vetting process for our MSBE office to confirm that they in fact did attempt.
Got it. Yep.
But were not able to legitimately reach that target.
Thank you for that explanation. One more question involving awards 2 and 3. I noticed they were contract modifications, so I wondered, are these extra expenses predicted or foreseen, or were these unforeseen things that came up to warrant the contract modification and the additional monies that involves?
No, basically, so if you go back to the front of your cover, any modification that's more than $100,000 has to be brought to your attention. So essentially, the contract has a duration, but we load money into that contract each year. So this is the money greater than $100,000. So for this particular contract, on page 5, the one that you referenced, item 2, this is the last year of that contract. We put funding into it so they can discharge this year. As you'll see, the next contract afterwards, the initial term expires May 31, 2020, and 2 more extension options. So this amount of money will get us to the 2020 date, but you're going to see this thing
Got it.
2 more times if we put more than $100,000 into the contract in 21, and then again in 22 when it eventually terms out, and then there's no more renewal options left here.
That's a great explanation. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Schallheim. Any other board questions or comments? Any public comment? Seeing none. Momentarily, Mrs. Corkadel is going to read a motion because we do have to re-enter closed session to hear 2 appeals. But just to announce our upcoming meetings, the next general meeting of the Board of Education will be on Thursday, October 10th, 2019 at 10 a.m. in this room. The next meeting of the Policy Committee will be Wednesday, October 23rd, 2019 at 4 p.m. here in the boardroom. And the next Budget Committee meeting will be Wednesday, October 23rd, 2019 at 5 p.m. here in the boardroom. And with that, Mrs. Corkadel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the board go into closed session to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice on a legal matter.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. We stand adjourned. Thank you.